Hello and welcome to Woke Watch, and this week we begin with a victory for common sense, because last week I and thousands of other people were arguing passionately against Puffin Books' decision to rewrite the works of Roald Dahl, making them more up-to-date and woke. So Puffin has done a massive U-turn in the face of the backlash and have said that although the newer woke versions will be available, they will continue to print the classic versions of Dahl's books. What I think they're saying there is, we've made a fuck up, but we've already done a run of the new books, so expect to see them in bookstores at a massively discounted price. In fact, this story got so big that not only did comedy legend Ricky Gervais wade in, but also Camilla Parker Bowles, the Queen Consort. You know you fucked up when the King's Missus is having a go at you. But whilst this went on, another author's books flew under the radar and have been rewritten for a modern woke audience. That author is Ian Fleming. Many people aren't aware that Ian Fleming wrote the story Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which went on to be a successful musical film with the great Dick Van Dyke. Even fewer people know that a chitty bang bang is a chit given to a soldier so he can leave the barracks and fuck a prostitute. So that's ruined that film for you. But Fleming, of course, is best known for writing the James Bond novels, and they're due to be reprinted to coincide with the 70th anniversary of the release of Casino Royale, the first novel. But once again, sensitivity readers have been in to change any language that can be deemed sexist, racially charged, openly racist, ableist, etc, etc. And then, in the front of the new versions of the novels, there will be a disclaimer explaining why it's been changed. The question I have is this: if they're putting in a disclaimer, then why not just have one that says this book was written in the middle of the last century, attitudes were very different then, and some of the language is now deemed offensive, and then just leave the text as it is? Because that's what they do on old movies. Last year the wife and I watched Gone with the Wind, which has a similar disclaimer. And Gone with the Wind is a strange film because it's set in the American Civil War, but we, the audience, are on the side of the Confederacy. We're supporting the guys who were really into slavery, because Gone with the Wind is still a bloody good film. If it was edited now for a modern audience, it wouldn't make any fucking sense. So why do the same thing with an author's works? Because I grew up in a time when everyone wasn't fucking offended by everything, I've read the Bond novels as they were written, and I'll confess, you couldn't read them out in public without getting arrested. There is a lot of sexism and there is a lot of racial slurs. However, to be serious for one moment, if we erase the past, then we can't learn from history. Also, if we erase it, we can't look back and see how far we've come. Because 70 years ago, it was okay for an author to use very derogatory language, whereas now, in 2023, I can say I've got 15 different genders, and anyone who doesn't agree with me is a fucking bigot. Yet there is something I find confusing. The books are being rewritten, or rather have been rewritten, to remove anything which some people could deem as offensive. But the character James Bond is an assassin, he's a spy, he's a 00 agent licensed to kill, he carries out state-sanctioned murder. So how is it okay that we need to remove language which someone may find slightly offensive, but it's fine for the main character to walk into a room and empty a handgun into someone's head? And if you haven't read the novels but you've seen the films, be aware, James Bond in the books is very different to James Bond in the movies. There's none of that outdated camp humour. James Bond is a brutal killer. In fact, the reason the humour was brought in is because in the first James Bond film, Dr. No, a guy sent to assassinate James Bond fires his, I think it's a revolver, maybe a semi-automatic, into where he thinks Bond is sleeping. Sean Connery is sat behind the door and uses the line, "You've had your six." He then shoots the guy, but as he goes down, he continues to shoot him. Audiences were horrified at the brutality. So in the following films, every time Bond kills someone, he puts a quippy little joke in. It's also worth mentioning that Ian Fleming did know what he was on about. He'd worked for British intelligence, he'd been part of 20 Group. Casino Royale is based on a real mission. Except when Fleming took part in the mission, he lost the game of poker and lost a load of money for the British taxpayer. However, if you watch any interview with people who knew Fleming, they all say the same fucking thing. Ian Fleming was James Bond. So these woke rewrites, they're already happening. They're in print right now. But we know with wokeness, the fucking goalposts never stop moving. So what's acceptable for 2023? Will it be okay next year or the year after? I mean, in Casino Royale, are they leaving the gambling in? Because thousands of people suffer from gambling addiction. Can Bond still drink and smoke because that's bad for you? When he has sex with a woman, will they have to sign a consent form before engaging in mutually satisfactory coitus? And will they get rid of his Bentley because in the books he has a Bentley, not an Aston Martin? Is he allowed to drive it quickly, or will that car go in favour of a Nissan fucking Leaf? I'll end this video with something which may not seem to be connected with Ian Fleming's works, but it is in a way, because language constantly evolves, and Fleming's works had a lot of racially charged language. But if we take the word BAME, that first came into being in the late 70s or early 80s. It was adopted by the British Parliament in 2004. BAME stands for Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic. Essentially, in a country where the majority of the population are white, this refers to everyone else. In the year 2021, the word BAME was banned for being racist. So yes, the word has evolved. Do we now need to go back and alter every single fucking book with the word BAME in it? Of course, that won't happen. So why go after the works of an author who wrote his first novel 70 years ago, or rather it was published 70 years ago? And although the terminology in that book is now deemed as distasteful, as it were, Ian Fleming's guilty of nothing more than being born in a different time. God, this is depressing. As ever, thanks for watching.